Let me start by sharing something I've never really said out loud. There was a time when I felt completely invisible. Maybe you've been there too, working hard, doing your best, but always feeling like you're falling short. My name's Jack, and for a long time, I thought I needed more to be worthy, more money, more status, more success. I thought if I could just get those things, then I'd finally deserve love, respect, everything I wanted. But here's the truth, I never felt like enough. In my 20s, I struggled with relationships. Not because I wasn't trying, but because I didn't believe I was worth it. I didn't have the right job or the right life. I spent years in this self-imposed prison, waiting for some kind of breakthrough that never came. Maybe you felt that too. Like no matter how hard you try, you're stuck in this loop of self-doubt, questioning whether you're ever going to have the life you dream about. The worst part? I was convinced I needed all these things to be good enough for someone to love me. But looking back now, I see how wrong I was. It happened when I least expected it. I wasn't looking for love, not really. I had spent so much time chasing after the wrong things, money, status, success, that I had completely forgotten what it meant to connect with someone on a deeper level. I had grown accustomed to the idea that maybe I wasn't meant for real love, that I was better off figuring things out on my own. But then, she walked into my life. I remember the first time I saw Sarah clearly. It wasn't one of those big, dramatic moments where the world stops and everything goes into slow motion, like some Hollywood movie. No, it was much quieter than that. We were introduced at a friend's party, a casual get-together with people I barely knew. I was standing by the food table, trying to figure out if I wanted a beer or a glass of wine, when she walked in. She wasn't trying to make a scene or grab attention. She just was. Sarah had this calm, effortless energy about her, like she wasn't concerned with anyone else's opinion. She wasn't pretending to be something she wasn't, and that was refreshing in a way I didn't even realize I needed. She had this way of looking at the world that seemed so grounded, yet full of possibility. Her laugh was light, warm, and genuine, like she had this inner peace about her that I'd never seen in anyone before. And her smile. God, that smile. It wasn't the type that was put on for show, or one you could fake. It was a smile that came from somewhere deep inside her, as if she genuinely found joy in the little things. I was drawn to her immediately, but I didn't want to seem too eager. So I just observed from the sidelines. I didn't know why, but something in me told me that this was different. She was different. There was no urgency in her. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, and that's what struck me most. She was just being. She was confident without being boastful, kind without being saccharine, and I found myself wanting to know more. I tried to play it cool, just like I always did. But then our mutual friend introduced us, and something shifted. We exchanged a few words, nothing profound, just the usual small talk at a party, but even then, I could tell there was something there. Something magnetic. She wasn't like the other women I'd met, who I'd always felt I had to perform for. She was just there, completely present, and I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to be present too. As the night went on, we ended up talking more. At first, it was about simple things, work, travel, what we liked to do in our free time, but soon, the conversation started to flow more naturally. It was effortless. I could tell she wasn't just talking to be polite, but because she actually wanted to get to know me. And that was rare. People don't always do that, do they? They're either too busy trying to be interesting or too self-absorbed to really listen. But not Sarah. She listened, and she asked questions that made me think, that made me want to open up more. There was a moment when we were sitting on the balcony, talking about our childhoods, and I realized something that shocked me. I was actually being myself. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to be someone I wasn't. I wasn't performing for her attention. I wasn't worried about impressing her. I was simply talking, sharing, and for once, I felt like I didn't need to hide anything. And I could see that Sarah was the same. She wasn't trying to present an ideal version of herself. She was just being herself too. It was like we were in this rare space where the walls were down, and it was just two people connecting on a real level. That's when I felt it, the spark. A quiet, subtle kind of hope that I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't the kind of hope that came with grand expectations or fantasies. It was the kind of hope that made me believe there could be something real between us. Not perfect. Not without flaws. But real. Something grounded. And for the first time in a long time, I thought, maybe I'm not too late for this. Maybe I'm not too broken for love. The more we talked, the more I realized that Sarah was everything I'd been unknowingly searching for. She was self-assured, but she didn't put up walls. She was compassionate, but not in a way that felt like pity. She had dreams and ambitions, but she wasn't looking to impress anyone. She wasn't trying to make me feel like I had to keep up with her or meet some unspoken standard. She was just living her life, and the more I got to know her, the more I realized how much I wanted to be a part of that. By the time we said goodnight, I knew one thing for sure. I wanted to see her again. I wanted to learn more about her. I wanted to understand how someone could be so calm, so collected, and yet so alive at the same time. She made me question everything I thought I knew about relationships. She made me see that maybe I was looking for the wrong things in the wrong places. That night, as I walked home, my mind was spinning. I couldn't stop thinking about her. And as much as I had tried to keep my expectations in check, as much as I had promised myself not to get ahead of myself, I couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as lost as I thought. That maybe, there was a chance for me to find something real after all. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't just living in a world of missed opportunities and regrets. I felt like I was on the verge of something new. And that was terrifying. But it was also beautiful. It wasn't that I didn't want to make things work with Sarah. I did. More than anything. I thought we had something special, something real. But every time I looked at her, every time she smiled or reached for my hand, the doubts would creep in. The fear would creep in. The fear that I wasn't enough for her. That I would never be the man she needed me to be. And the more I tried to ignore it, the more that fear consumed me. There were days when I would look at Sarah and think maybe, just maybe, this time I'll be the man she deserves. I'd picture us, happy, secure, building a life together. And for a moment, the hope would feel so real, like I could actually see our future. I could almost touch it. She was everything I ever wanted. She had this warmth about her, this energy that made everything feel right when I was with her. I could imagine her being the mother of my kids, the woman I'd spend the rest of my life with. I wanted that more than anything. But then the fear would come crashing in. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail her? What if I can't give her the stability and the love that she deserves? I'd think about my past failures, my missed opportunities, the moments when I let fear or self-doubt take over, and it was like a black cloud that hung over everything. Every time I started to believe we could build something together, that cloud would remind me of my weaknesses. Of my inability to provide, to be the confident, strong partner that she needed. It wasn't just about the things I didn't have, money, status, success. It was about the emotional gaps I still hadn't filled within myself. The insecurity, the fear of not measuring up. The fear that I'd never fully feel like I belonged in a relationship that was so pure, so effortless for her. For Sarah, it seemed so natural. She had this grounded, confident energy that drew people in. But me? I was still trying to figure out who I was, where I fit in, and whether I had the right to ask for someone like her to stick around while I got my act together. It felt like I was standing on a precipice. Every time I was with Sarah, there was a part of me that felt alive, that felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. I wanted to believe that love was enough. I wanted to believe that I could rise to the occasion and be the man I needed to be for her. But then, every time I let myself hope, the fear would hit me again, a gut punch that knocked me back to reality. The fear of failure. The fear of disappointing her. The fear of becoming the person who wasn't able to live up to the love she had given me. It was like this constant battle inside of me, this constant tug-of-war between hope and fear. And I couldn't figure out how to win. I'd ask myself, why can't I just be the man she believes I am? Why does it feel like I'm always one step behind? The love we shared was real, but I was afraid I was too broken to be the kind of partner she deserved. I wanted to be that person for her, but every time I looked at her, I felt like I was holding her back, not propelling her forward. The worst part was that she was so patient with me, so understanding. There were days when she'd hold me in her arms and I'd feel like everything was going to be okay, like I could handle anything, like we had all the time in the world. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just pretending that I was the guy she needed when, deep down, I knew I wasn't. That's when the real battle began. Do I stay and try to push through these fears? Or do I let her go, because I'm too afraid to drag her down with me? I wasn't ready to face the possibility that I might not be the person I thought I was. I wasn't ready to admit to myself that the man I wanted to be was still a work in progress. It was a never-ending cycle, hope pulling me toward a future with Sarah, fear pushing me away from the possibility that I wasn't enough, and self-doubt circling around like a dark cloud, always lingering. I'd have these moments of clarity, where I'd think, if only I could just get over this fear, just get past it, everything would be fine. But the truth was, I didn't know how to get past it. I didn't know how to convince myself that I was good enough for her when all I could see were my own flaws. I'd lie awake at night, wondering if I was wasting my time. Was I being selfish by staying with her, by clinging to something that wasn't going to work? I couldn't tell if my fear of failure was just a reason to back out, or if it was a gut feeling telling me that I wasn't ready. But no matter how many times I tried to push it down, I couldn't escape the truth. I wasn't whole. I wasn't ready to be the partner Sarah deserved, and yet, the hope wouldn't go away. There were still moments when I could picture us together, Sarah and me, happy, stable, and confident in our love. I wanted to believe that I could get there. But every time I took a step forward, the fear would drag me back, like a weight around my ankles, keeping me tethered to my own insecurities. I knew I had to make a choice. But in my heart, I wasn't sure I was capable of making the right one. I spent days thinking about it, replaying every moment with Sarah. Every laugh we shared, every touch, every quiet moment in the car, just listening to music together. I kept telling myself that things would change, that I would figure it out, that maybe I could eventually get to the place where I could fully give her what she needed. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I wasn't being fair to her, and I wasn't being fair to myself. The truth was, I was scared. Scared of not being enough. Scared that I would fail her, fail us. I wasn't just afraid of losing her, I was afraid of hurting her. I didn't want to be the guy who couldn't live up to her expectations. But at the same time, I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep showing up in a relationship where I wasn't giving everything I had. I couldn't keep holding her back because I was stuck in a place where I didn't know how to move forward. I remember sitting across from her at the cafe. Her eyes sparkled, and she was talking about something she was excited about, some new project at work. She looked so happy, so full of life. And I sat there, just listening, feeling like an imposter. I didn't deserve her happiness because I wasn't offering her the same level of security, the same level of commitment that she deserved. I was afraid that if I stayed, I would only drag her down into my own confusion and self-doubt. And that's when I knew what I had to do. I had to break her heart. I kept telling myself, if I love her, I'll let her go. But that didn't make it any easier. It didn't make the decision feel any less cruel. I didn't want to hurt her. The thought of seeing her face crumble when I told her was more than I could bear. But I knew if I didn't do it, if I kept holding on just to keep her with me, I would end up doing more damage in the long run. I would resent myself. And eventually, I would resent her, too, because deep down, I would feel like I was never enough. So, I gathered every ounce of courage I had and said the words I never thought I'd say. Sarah, I think it's time we end things. Her face froze. Her eyes searched mine, looking for any hint of the guy she had fallen for. And for a moment, I wanted to take it all back. I wanted to pull her close, kiss her, and tell her everything would be okay. but I couldn't. Not when I knew that this was the only way for both of us to move forward. "I don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "What happened, Jack? We're doing fine, aren't we?" I could see the confusion in her eyes, the hurt starting to show. And I could feel my heart breaking with every word. But I knew I couldn't back out now. "No, Sarah," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're not. I'm not the person you need right now. I don't know who I am, and I can't ask you to wait for me to figure that out. I care about you so much. And I don't want to hurt you, but I know that I will if I stay." Her eyes widened, as if she couldn't quite grasp what I was saying. "You're saying you don't love me anymore?" she asked, her voice cracking. I could feel the weight of that question, and it nearly crushed me. But I had to be honest with her. "I do love you. But love isn't enough. Not when I'm not whole myself. I can't be the partner you deserve when I'm still trying to figure out who I am. And I can't keep holding you back from having the kind of life you deserve." The silence between us stretched on for what felt like an eternity. I could see the tears welling in her eyes, and it felt like I was watching the world shatter around me. I had just told the person I cared about more than anything that I couldn't give her what she needed, and it hurt worse than anything I had ever felt. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then, in a voice so small, so fragile, she whispered, "I thought we were building something together, Jack." "I thought so too," I said, my voice breaking. "But I can't be the man you need right now. And that's not fair to you." That was the hardest part, the silence that followed. It wasn't the words, but the weight of them. It wasn't the heartbreak that she felt, but the heartbreak that I felt knowing I was doing the right thing, even though it felt like the wrong thing. I stayed with her for a while, trying to comfort her, but I could tell there was nothing I could say that would make this hurt less. And that's when I realized the truth. Love isn't just about being together in the good times. It's about knowing when to let go, even when it hurts. It's about understanding that sometimes, in order to love someone, you have to step away and let them go. I couldn't be the person she needed, not now, not until I figured out who I was. Walking away from her wasn't easy. It broke my heart, and it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But deep down, I knew it was the right choice, for both of us. Because real love isn't just about staying together no matter what. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let go so that both people can grow into who they need to be. Months went by, and I thought I was doing okay. I was trying to move on, focus on myself, put the past behind me. But every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering about Sarah. I'd think about her, about what she was doing, and where she was in her life. I was still holding on to a thread of hope, hoping that maybe, just maybe, she'd come back when things were different. I wasn't ready to admit it to myself, but I was stuck in a place where I hadn't fully let go, even though I told myself I had. Then, one day, I heard the news from a friend. Sarah was seeing someone else. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't even think I processed it properly at first. I remember feeling a tightness in my chest. Like the air was suddenly sucked out of the room. My first instinct was to feel angry. Maybe even a little jealous. I had always pictured Sarah as someone who would eventually come back to me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this was it. She wasn't coming back. And, for the first time, I wasn't sure how to feel about it. I'd spent months trying to convince myself that I was okay, that I was moving forward. But hearing that she had moved on before I had, before I was ready to even acknowledge I had let go, was a punch to the gut. My mind raced. What if I wasn't enough? What if I made the biggest mistake of my life? What if she found someone who could give her everything I couldn't? I felt betrayed, by myself more than anyone. I felt like I hadn't truly let her go. Like I was still holding on to some fantasy of us getting back together once I had figured things out. But the truth hit me hard. She had already moved on, and it wasn't just about her finding someone new. It was about her living her life and being happy. It was about her choosing herself over the uncertainty I had left her with. It was about her healing and moving forward, even when I wasn't ready to. And that realization, as painful as it was, forced me to see things from a different perspective. At first, I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to blame her for moving on too quickly, for not waiting for me to figure myself out. But then, I took a step back and looked at the bigger picture. Sarah had been moving forward this whole time, while I had been standing still, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting to be ready. And in doing so, I had been holding on to the past, unable to see that the future wasn't meant to be a continuation of our relationship. It was meant to be a new chapter for both of us, apart from each other. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that her moving on wasn't a betrayal. It wasn't about me being replaced or forgotten. It was a sign of strength, a sign that she had done the thing I hadn't been able to do. She had let go. She had chosen her happiness. And in that, I found a strange sense of peace. For the first time in months, I wasn't upset. I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I was relieved. Not because I didn't care about Sarah, but because I knew that by letting her go, I had done the right thing. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I understood now that love wasn't about waiting for someone to come back. It wasn't about keeping the door open forever. It was about growth. About moving forward even when things didn't turn out the way you expected. Her moving on was exactly what I needed to see. It wasn't about her being with someone else. It was about me understanding that I could never truly move forward if I was still holding on to a past that wasn't meant to be. I had to let go, too. And in letting go, I was finally free to grow, free to become the man I needed to be before I could give love fully again. And the more I reflected on it, the clearer it became. If Sarah hadn't moved on, if she had waited for me, I don't think I would have ever fully understood the importance of that moment. She wasn't just moving on for herself, she was teaching me a lesson I needed to learn. Sometimes you have to let someone go because, in the end, it's what's best for both of you. At first, I didn't understand why things had to end. I spent so many nights lying awake, questioning everything. Was it a mistake? Was I being selfish? I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe I'd failed her, that maybe I'd made a wrong choice by walking away. But as the days turned into weeks, and then months, I started to realize something important. I didn't fail her. I didn't fail us. I had to let go, not because I didn't love her, but because I wasn't the man I needed to be yet. I didn't have the emotional strength or maturity to give her the kind of relationship she deserved. And that was the hardest pill to swallow. It wasn't about not caring. It was about seeing the bigger picture. I had to face the fact that we were both on different journeys. Her journey was to grow into the person she was meant to be, and mine was to find out who I truly was, without relying on anyone else to define me. Letting her go wasn't about cutting ties out of anger or hurt. It was about letting her find happiness without carrying the burden of my insecurities. It was about setting her free so she could be with someone who had done the work, who had figured out who he was and could love her without fear of not being good enough. And I realized that sometimes, love means letting go of the person you care about most because you know it's what's best for them. And then there was me. I had to face the truth that I wasn't ready for the kind of love Sarah was offering. It wasn't just about finding the right person, it was about becoming the right person. I needed to build the kind of life where I didn't feel like I was chasing something or always feeling like I was one step behind. I needed to stop waiting for external things, money, status, success, to make me feel worthy of love. I had to learn to believe that I was already enough, just as I was. The more I reflected on the relationship, the more I understood that it was never about being perfect. It was about being real. And at that time, I wasn't real enough with myself. I couldn't give her the best of me because I didn't even know who I was or what I truly wanted in life. I was still figuring things out, and I needed to give myself that space to grow. I had to let go of my old belief that I needed to be someone else to be worthy of love. Letting go wasn't about surrendering to failure, it was about accepting that sometimes, love means stepping back and giving each other the freedom to grow on our own. It was an act of courage, not weakness. I wasn't choosing to end things because I didn't care. I was choosing to end things because I wanted both of us to have the chance to find what we truly needed. As I looked back on it, I realized that we both needed time to evolve separately. I needed to become the man I was meant to be, and Sarah needed to follow her own path without being held back by someone who wasn't fully present. And in that space, I learned something that changed everything. Love doesn't always mean staying together, even when you care deeply for someone. Sometimes it means letting go so both of you can become the people you were always meant to be. That was the moment I began to see how truly powerful it was to let go. It wasn't just about Sarah. It was about me too. By stepping back, I gave both of us the gift of freedom to become stronger, more self-aware, and more ready for the love we truly deserved. And as much as I missed her, I knew it was the right decision. Because real love, deep love, isn't about holding on. It's about allowing each other the space to grow, and trusting that if it's meant to be, it will come back together in time. After the breakup, I went through some tough times. But I also went through a lot of growth. I realized I had to focus on myself first. I needed to build a life that I was proud of, no longer just for someone else, but for me. I focused on my career, on my own emotional health, on becoming the kind of man I wanted to be, not just for a partner, but for myself. It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. But over time, I started becoming someone who was ready for a relationship. Someone who wasn't afraid of his own potential. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about learning to be comfortable with where I was and knowing that I deserved someone who would love me for who I was, flaws, imperfections, and all. Years later, I found peace. It wasn't because I had all the answers, but because I had stopped trying to force things. I stopped worrying about being perfect, and I started focusing on becoming better. I wasn't waiting for someone else to complete me. I was already complete. I understood that love is not about having everything together before you find it. It's about timing, about growing into the person you need to be before you can truly give love. I've learned that sometimes, the best thing you can do for someone is to let them go. Not out of selfishness, but out of love. Because in the end, love is not about being perfect, it's about being ready. So, what's the lesson here? It's simple. Love is about timing, not perfection. Sometimes you have to step back and let life unfold at its own pace. You can't rush love, and you can't force it. If you're struggling with self-doubt or thinking you're not ready for love, remember this: it's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out. You just have to be willing to grow, and when the time is right, love will find you. But you have to be ready to embrace it when it does. So, to anyone out there who feels stuck, unsure, or like they're not enough, trust me, you are. And the right love will come when you're ready for it. Just like I did, you'll get there.